I enjoy the diecast hobby and there are many great models out there, even though I am often quite critical about new Herpa Wings models, but I think for good reason. It is, however, rather rare that I specifically advise people not to buy a model, but this is such a case. Do not buy this model. With that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at an Airbus A350-1000 of Qatar Airways. At the front of the box we have a cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of that we have the Qatar Airways branding. And in this case the box design truly matches up with the model. It is absolutely terrible, so luckily enough this is a limited edition because this aircraft model should never ever have been sold. And here she is, the Airbus A350-1000 in the OneWorld livery of Qatar Airways. And you might be asking yourself now, why is he disliking this aircraft model so much? Doesn't it look just fine? Well, on first glimpse perhaps, but I would argue no it doesn't. But I will get more into why I don't like this aircraft model later in the video, so do stay tuned, because first I would like to take a step-by-step look at the aircraft model itself to see what it actually has to offer. And we start off with a look at the tail section, where we find the Qatar Airways branding on the vertical stabilizer. On the fuselage we then have the Qatari flag and the full registration code of the aircraft, and on top of the fuselage we find the addition of a set dome, where Herpa actually has made a little bit of an improvement because the set dome now has a much more realistic size. And towards the very tail of the aircraft we also have a bit of detailing around the APU exhaust. At the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage we then find several prints, like for example here the name of the airline in Arabic language, or for example the addition of the static ports that Herpa by now is adding as a standard to their aircraft models. But given that this is the OneWorld livery, of course we have rather largely and prominently placed here the writing of member of OneWorld, and underneath that Qatar. And next to the cabin door we also have a rather large OneWorld logo. And from there we go to the most noticeable issue this aircraft model has, and that is the cockpit section, specifically the cockpit windows. Yes, we have the black mask and the window wipers printed on, but the cockpit windows are just completely misplaced. And the fact that Herpa has added some sensors or the emergency hatch above just doesn't save that fact that this has completely messed up the entire cockpit section. But for now, let's shelve this issue and move on to the engines. They have been kept in the standard color scheme of Qatar Airways, so with this darker grey coloring, and the Qatar Airways logo as well as the silver leading edge and some safety relevant markings. That does look actually pretty decent. Also, the physical detailing of the engines is pretty nice, although I would say we have seen better looks here from the front. Of course, we can and should also spend a bit of time with the wings. So if we look here at the top side, we can see the different flap slats and spoilers have been carved out rather nicely, and we do also have the markings as to where to walk on the wings. The underside offers us some more nice physical detailing, and we also find the full registration code has been printed on once more. The wings, of course, of the A350 also have these lovely winglets, where we on the inner side also have the Qatar Airways branding. Then we have the landing gear, and that is the standard landing gear that Herpa uses for all the Airbus A350-1000s, which I think is a rather decent thing because overall it actually looks pretty decent. The only thing I am missing, however, are some printed details around the front landing gear. On the belly of the aircraft we then have the addition of Qatar. Well, I mean, we're supposed to have it, but unfortunately it has been destroyed by a hole in the fuselage for a stand, which is not included with this aircraft model. And then last but not least, we do also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here at the back of the aircraft and here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Airbus A350-1000 in the OneWorld livery of Qatar Airways from Herpa Wings on scale 1 to 500. And what can we say about this aircraft model other than you should not buy this model? Now, apart from the fact that I've seen far too many images of collectors receiving these models damaged, so a lot of shoddy work from Herpa's quality control, there are three major reasons why you should not buy this model. Now, let me be very clear. I bought this aircraft model so you don't have to, because I knew these issues were there before I bought it. But I want to confirm that they were as bad as I was fearing. When we look at the print across the entire side of the fuselage, what might not be as noticeable here in the video, but you will see it if you have the model in your own hands, is that, well, the entire print is off angle. By how much, you might ask? Well, I measured it by 1 millimeter. And I measured from the last cabin window to the first cabin window. And 1 millimeter might not sound like much, but in scale 500 it is, because it would be the equivalent of half a meter in real life. And I'm sorry, how can Herpa miss this? They have simply misprinted the entire side of the aircraft model, and not just on this model, but pretty much the entire production batch. And it gets worse. Now, I basically already mentioned it, the misplaced cockpit windows. But misplaced by how much? Well, let's compare it to a standard Qatar Airways A350-1000. I mean, it's staggering. How has no one from Herpa Wings noticed such glaring issues with this model? A model like this should never ever have been sold. Never in a million years. And when you then consider that Herpa has the absolute audacity to sell this aircraft model for 37 euros retail price. Save your money. If you want an A350-1000 of Qatar Airways, buy the standard livery. This model belongs in no collection. It only belongs in the bin. And I mean, recently I called the Cargolux Retro livery the worst 2021 model from Herpa Wings, but this one is a very strong competitor. With that, we have reached the end of today's episode. If you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to leave a like. That would be very much appreciated. And of course, if you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? That would be absolutely awesome. With that, I would like to say thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye. What an absolute joke. I mean, what was Herpa thinking?